This is the forest to the south of the city of Bydgoszcz in Poland. In this forest, we still come across abandoned concrete structures, and there are signs warning of the dangers of explosive materials that could still cause injury or even death. This was the location of one of the biggest armaments factories in the Third Reich, and it accounted for around 30% of all the ammunition used on the Eastern Front in World War II. Even before the end of the military campaign in Poland, planners sought out suitable locations in the newly occupied country which could be used for weapons and ammunition production. The advantage of Poland was distance. The planners were not expecting a quick victory over France, and for that matter, were not expecting the invasion of the Soviet Union. Poland was well outside of potential air raids and therefore was a suitable location. Weapons production was then controlled by private companies in Nazi Germany. One of the biggest such companies in this field was Dynamit AG, that is Dynamit Aktiengesellschaft, shortened to DAG, so Dynamite Limited. The company originally started by Alfred Nobel. Bydgoszcz offered a number of important advantages, including excellent modern transportation infrastructure which would be suitable for bringing in raw materials and shipping out the finished product. It also offered space for expansion and could be camouflaged in the forest. With the invasion of the Soviet Union, and in particular after the defeats of the winter of 1941-1942, the war was clearly going to be a long one. The factory was increased to a size that it occupied 23 square kilometers and needed 30,000 workers, many of whom were slaves. In this video, there's a guided tour around the museum. The museum is called the Explosium. It occupies less than 1% of the grounds of the former factory. I hope that you'll find this video interesting, and indeed that it might encourage you to visit this museum.
Hello, my name is Lucas and I'm a worker here in museum, in Explosium. When you look on this map here, you can see the route of our sightseeing. It's marked in the red color. Let's go a little bit closer. The zone that you can see here is only 1% of the whole factory that was built here in the Second World War. This zone was built to produce nitroglycerin. In the red color, as I said, is the route of our sightseeing, is the second production line that was built here in the Second World War by Nazi Germans. The second production line was built in case of any emergency or damage on the first production line. Here you have the first production line and this is the second production line. The sightseeing takes almost 2 hours with a guide. You can also visit our museum without a guide. It's exactly the same route, but without a guide, of course. What is really important, we will see many buildings that were used to produce nitroglycerin and acids in the Second World War. We count that this factory produced almost 30% of ammunition used in the Second World War by Nazi Germans on the Eastern Front. This map here is only 1% of the whole area. The whole area is about 25 kilometers square, but you will see it on a picture in another building on our exhibition. So that's all for now. Let's start our sightseeing. Those tunnels that we've been walking today were used only to transport the most important ingredients to produce nitroglycerin. That was sulfuric and nitric acid, also hot and cold water, and of course glycerin in barrels. What is really important, nitroglycerin can't be pumped mechanically because the pressure will cause an explosion. That's why they use the gravity force. And here in those tunnels you can see such rails on the walls, and to those rails there are inputted supports. On those supports they've got pipes. Why they use it? The answer is really simple. Because the condition of nitroglycerin was different each day. And when you are using the gravity force, you want to have the exactly speed of swimming nitroglycerin. Sometimes it can swim too fast, sometimes it can swim too slow. So you need to change the angle of each pipe by pulling up or just pushing down those supports, and you're changing the angles of those pipes, and you've got exactly the wanted speed of swimming nitroglycerin. Nitroglycerin swims here always with water, because in water it's a little bit more stable. And the nitration building, so the building where they made nitroglycerin, is built on the highest hill here in this zone. Every else building is built definitely lower. Now we are in the first exhibition. The first exhibition is about Alfred Nobel, who was the owner of the company that built this factory here in Bydgoszcz, but many years after his death. So Alfred Nobel was born in Sweden, in Stockholm, and he was really interested in explosive materials. But then he went to study to France, for example, and he came back after study to Stockholm again, and he built his first factory. He wanted to produce explosive materials to help humankind in building mines, building tunnels, canals. But of course, the most important thing was military. So this is the place where he can earn the biggest part of money. And when he died, he wrote his last will. In that last will, he moved all that money that he earned to the Nobel Foundation. All factories been sold and been bought by Germans. Firstly, the company was called Nobel and Corporation. Then he changed the name of the company to Dynamit Aktiengesellschaft, what means Dynamite Incorporated. And it goes so on and so on to the end of the Second World War, because by using this name, DAG, Nazis also produce explosive materials. That's why we've got an exhibition here about Alfred Nobel. So this building is similar to the first building that we've been before. Now we are on the second production line, and those two buildings been used as a storages for sulfuric and nitric acid, and also glycerin that was magazinated in such a barrel that you can see here. This is the building it was in the Second World War. As you can see on the rooftops, we've got something green. It was grass and trees in a camouflage to hide this whole factory in the Second World War. So not a single plane from Great Britain or Soviet Union will see this factory. Let's go for here. Okay, now we can see a picture took by plane in 44, and it shows us the whole factory. As I said to you at the beginning, 25 kilometers square, almost 1,500 buildings, 400 kilometers of roads, and 40 of railways. The factory was really huge, and it got different zones. So the first zone is here, the zone where they produced nitrocellulose that was transported here to the zone where we are, to the zone where they produce nitroglycerin. mixed nitroglycerin and nitrocellulose. We've got gunpowder that is going here to this place where they produce smokeless powder, and the smokeless powder goes here to the elaboration part where they put explosive materials into shells. Next zone where they produce TNT, and unfinished zone where they wanted to produce acids. What is really interesting also, we've got here a railway line that comes from Silesia to the Baltic Sea. Through railways, they transport the most important ingredients and of course explosive materials to the Eastern Front. What is really important here, there are also camps for forced laborers, here camps for prisoners of war from Great Britain, Belgium, Italy, France, but also we've got another camp here, and this huge camp was for Ostarbeiters, so people from Soviet Union, and this little camp here was thousands of Hungarian Jewish women brought here from Konzertlager Institute in 1944. We count that here in the Second World War worked almost 40,000 of workers, and on one shift, one day, in the best time of the factory, 10,000 workers daily. So as you can see, a huge city was built really near Bydgoszcz that was producing the explosive materials. Those explosive materials being tested on a shooting range and in laboratories that you got exactly here. Now we are in the most dangerous building, because this is the building where they made nitroglycerin. Nitroglycerin was made from sulfuric and nitric acid, and of course glycerin. In a machine that was there in the corner, a nitrator that mixed those ingredients. After mixing, we've got nitroglycerin and plenty of acids. So nitroglycerin is going here, where we've got this table now, to a separator, as its name is showing us. It separates acids from nitroglycerin. Then nitroglycerin went to exactly here, as you can see on this picture, a huge glass columns that was used to washing nitroglycerin by hot and cold water, and with water it went to the next building. As I said to you, there was a really huge chance that an explosion will be here, so that's why all corners in this building are round. The ceiling goes up, and here you've got a wall made from glass. In an explosion, the blast will go just through that wall and the building won't be destroyed. Also, workers that work in this building could escape from him by two escape tunnels. The lower one is right there, this is the upper one. And what's really important, workers in this factory got safety clothes that should protect them from acids. And those clothes were made from two materials. The first one was leather. And workers didn't like the leather clothes because they need to be changed often, because the acids just destroyed the leather clothes. So they used a second material that was asbestos. But no one thought about lung cancer and asbestos clothes. So workers work here 10, 12, 8 hours a shift in such a clothes. Of course, the factory goes 24 hours a day, so you can even get the worst shift, so from 7 to 7 by night, a night shift. And what's really important, a person was sitting on a chair that you can see down there. The chair has got only one leg, and the leg on the bottom is round. If you fall asleep when you are sitting on this chair, you just lose your balance, fall down, wake up on the ground, and you're watching on your machine again. Because if something will go wrong, a person on the nitrator could always push a button, and nitroglycerin from all those machines will go to a safety bath that is just under us. And in that safety bath they've got water. And water, as I said to you, nitroglycerin is more stable, and that is really important. It's more heavier than water. So after a few hours it was at the bottom of the bath, so you can use it, took it and use it again to produce the explosive materials. Okay, so now we are in an escape tunnel that goes from the nitration building. What is really important, the tunnel turns and the blast will go just straight here, and this wall is made, as you can hear, it's not concrete. Concrete you've got here. This is plaster. So the blast will go right here and the escaping worker got more chance to survive. Okay, so the escaping worker runs through the tunnel that is just behind this wall, goes here, hold this support how many strength he got, so the blast won't throw him somewhere in the forest. That will be deadly for him, of course. But what is really important, nitroglycerin blows in a part of a second, in tenths of seconds. So it's impossible that you will see that something will go wrong. Run through the stairs, run through the tunnel, run here and hold this support. On the first production line, really in the Second World War, was an explosion. And all workers that work in this building died. So as you can see, it's only a psychological thing that you will feel here a little bit safer, and you work day by day on 100% because you feel safe. It's definitely safer. Okay, now we are just after the second building of the whole sightseeing road. As you can see, many buildings to see. As I said, almost 2 hours will take you the sightseeing route. Behind this window you can see that we are on the same level that the nitration building, and now we will go through this tunnel lower and lower and lower, and you will see on which height we will be in the next building. This is the height difference that I said to you to transport nitroglycerin by using only the gravity force. Okay, so we went lower and lower through the tunnel, and we are here on the highest level in this building. In this building, nitro, oxygen and sulfuric acid came here in two huge containers that you can see here in this building. They are in the yellow color, and at lowest level they input overheated steam to 120 Celsius degree, and it separates nitro oxygen and sulfuric acid. Nitro oxygen goes here where it's again concentrated and changed to nitric acid, and those cleaned acids are leaving this building. What is really important in this building, that on the floor you can see acid-proof coffles, and also right there in the corner of this building, and on each level exactly the same bath you can see. Inside that bath there was alkaline water, but of course alkaline water is not strong enough to
neutralize the acid.
Yeah, to neutralize the acid, because the acids got here 70-60% of concentration. So again, psychological thing, that workers will feel a little bit safer here in this building. In this whole building, the exhibition is about weapons. So you've got here white weapons, siege weapons on the opposite side, and so on to more modern weapons. So in this place, nitro oxygen was changed to nitric acid, and it was again concentrated and cleaned, going from the upper part of it to the lowest one, and then to the storage room. Now we are outside of the building of denitration, so where the acids were cleaned, and those cleaned acids went to a storage that is just behind me, as you can see. It's really hard to see him because this is the camouflage that should be used here in the Second World War. Of course, trees didn't grow so fast, so that's why on the plain picture we can see those buildings. But it should look exactly as here, as you can see it now. So the building is covered by forest. So now we are again in a building that inside you can have an explosion. That's why again the ceiling goes up, all corners are round, and we've got the blast wall exactly here. The exhibition here is about two first factories built in Germany by Alfred Nobel, so in Dynamit and in Krümel. But what is really important, the history of this building, the whole process that goes here. Because in this building, water that was used to clean nitroglycerin in those washing columns in the nitration building came here because it can have few drops, let's say, of nitroglycerin. And it came here on two cascades, the smaller one and the bigger one. Slowly it swimmed. Nitroglycerin, as I said to you, is more heavier than water. That it was on the bottom of those cascades. You can use it again to produce explosive materials. Not a single drop of nitroglycerin should be wasted. Depends on you. At the beginning of the sightseeing, I said to you that the first production line is exactly the same as the second production line. That wasn't 100% the truth, because on the first production line you don't have those stairs that you can see here. Why not? Because the first production line was built properly. This one, not really. Because they built the building that we've been before and the building that we are going to, and then they start to build tunnels from different parts, different sides, and this is the place where they should just how to say it?
Join.
Yeah. And as you can see here on this level, this is the level that they thought, oh my god, we want to match. That's why they start to build upper and upper and upper this whole tunnel, and that's why they need to build those stairs, because they were on different heights. It's let's say it's a mistake, maybe a sabotage. In this building we've got the exhibition about forced laborers and prisoners of war. What is really important are those pictures that you can see here, how people made explosive materials in the Second World War and before the Second World War. As you can see, people didn't have any gloves, so they've been touching by their bare hands explosive materials made from sulfuric and nitric acid that are really, really dangerous for human health, because the nitric acid destroys proteins and sulfuric acid burn everything. So that's why people at work here have been called canary birds, goldheads, parrots, because their hair color, skin color change to orange and red. They lose their nails, they lose their hair, and when they were really, really sick, they've been fired. Not died here, but they've been fired, because this factory, as a normal corporation, needs to work. 30% of ammunition needs to be made. So that's why they've been firing those ill guys and taking new ones on their places. And we are going here. this building that we just been before, nitroglycerin was mixed with nitrocellulose. Nitrocellulose comes at the highest level in this building. By train it was transported here. Nitroglycerin came at the 4th level with water, and on the 4th level in those holes they've got mixers, and they mixed nitroglycerin and nitrocellulose. Because nitroglycerin came here with water, the gunpowder was really wet, so it fall down to the next level. In those holes they've got something like centrifuge machines. On a huge speed the water was thrown out, and a little wet gunpowder was thrown to the next level, and in bags it was transported to the next building. Because of the explosive materials, again we've got the blast wall, the ceiling is going up, corners are round, and as you can see this building's got 3 parts. The first one, stairs, the second one, but the third part was built in case of any emergency on those 2 parts. Here you can see the metal plates. For example, as this one, we've got every information about the worker. We've got his name, his date of birth, the place where he's been living, where he was born, a metal archive. Why metal plates here? It's simple, explosive materials. If you got a paper ones, in explosion the whole archive is destroyed. Also they've been afraid of flood because plenty of water was used here, and a hole in a pipe, also the archive will be destroyed. Each worker's got such a plate. We found only less than 10% of the whole staff crew here in this factory. So as you can see, we don't really know who was working here, because less than 4,000 plates on 40,000 of workers. Here in this building, the gunpowder took out the rest of the water. On the high level here in this building, gunpowder came. It was thrown out on the huge rollers that were here. When you can see those concrete parts, those rollers got 50-60 Celsius degree, and then the gunpowder was cut in smaller parts, put it in crates, and transported to the storage part of this building. So the part just behind me. So now we are going in this way. In this room, the exhibition is of course propaganda one. So from outside you can see how brave and heroes are the Red Army soldiers. But inside the exhibition there is a second phase of the Red Army. For example, information about killing Polish soldiers before 41, so at the aggression of Soviet Union on Poland. Here also you can see a gun called ZIS-3, and on the walls you can see some jewels made by Soviet Union soldiers, because they stayed here for the next 2 years after the Second World War, and they took everything that they can, every equipment, even railways. And this is the last stop of our sightseeing. So a ramp where trains came. With wagons like this one. This is an original wagon from 39, made by the company called AMN. The wagon is called Stuttgart, and definitely explosive materials being transported here through this factory on such a wagons. We count that Soviets took from this factory about 1,300 to 1,500 wagons of equipment, with rails, as I said to you, with every machine. Before Soviets came here, Germans took all documentary of this factory, so that's why it's really hard to find more information about this mystical history.